It is gonna work. Perfect. So, welcome back to another episode of Your Bestie in Freight, the show where we talk logistics, business, mindset, and making moves that matter. Today's guest is someone I have admired for a long time, not just for what he has built, but for how he has built it. Tim is a powerhouse in the supply chain world. He has helped Fortune 500 companies source top talent, placed over 24 million in salaries, and now runs $100 million startup as a CEO. But that's not all. He has also built one of the most authentic and powerful brands on LinkedIn with over 400 industry followers. So from selling to trailers to warehouses to helping supply chain leaders invest in real estate, Tim has done it all and he has done it with integrity, faith, and heart. Tim, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Been following you for a while, and I'm glad that I was asked to do this. I appreciate it.
Yes, how is your day? You are in Georgia, right?
Yep, I'm in Georgia. Yeah, we're finally in the 80-degree weather, so finally it's good to be outside and the sun's out longer, so you can have more stuff to do.
Yeah, that's perfect. Here in South Carolina too, we had some rain, and yesterday I just saw that like everything is green, like in just few days. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. Yep, I started
Yes.
seeing the trees getting leaves on it, and it's time to cut grass and all that stuff now.
Yes, yes. So, Tim, so you have worn a lot of hats in your career, from executive search to commercial officer to CEO. When you look back, what has been the biggest shift in your mindset between working in supply chain, we see like leading from the top, leading?
Yeah, I would say that probably the biggest thing when I was a headhunter, I was kind of a one-man show. It was my
Mhm.
job to find the talent and my job to find the customers, build the relationships. And I realized that to scale, as much as in transportation, it's hard to find people that you can trust. It's hard to find real, authentic partnerships that are not just transactional. I realized the only way to scale was to really put myself around partnerships and a team or teams that can help me get to where I'm trying to go. And so being able to do that, I've been able to do a lot of different things because I trust a lot of different people to do what they love to do.
Mhm. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, just finding, the right partnerships and people that you can trust to work with.
That's it.
Yes. Well, you have built a brand based on relationship and consistency. What do most people get wrong about trust building in business today?
Yeah, building relationships is the key, and people talk about relationships all the time. And unfortunately, it's been kind of an overused term. It's all about partnerships and strategic partnerships and channel partners, and it still comes out to be very transactional. I think when you can run a business based on the only way you win is for other people to win, that's when I think that you really start seeing success. There never can be a time where I win and my customer loses or my partners lose. So it's really setting up a system that allows everyone to win and enjoy the win. I think it was a podcast that I saw about a year ago,
Uh-huh.
and this lady made $1 million in one day
Wow.
brokering a deal, and she said it was the most lonely day that she's ever had because there was nobody to celebrate with. and
Wow.
and I could resent to that, or I could apply that so well, because it's not fun to win by yourself. It's cool to have people around you that can celebrate and high five, because when you win, they win. And so I think that's the big thing, and is just making true relationships versus just having that transactional mindset.
Wow. That was so amazing. I kind of got chills when you talked about that woman because I had felt that way before for sure. And I was actually watching another podcast that this lady, she's like all about like healing and stuff, and she was telling that every morning we have to go to the mirror and do ourselves high five, and I tried to do it few days. It is fun.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It is. And I think waking up with just gratitude, I think in logistics, it's very hard to stay positive all the time, because whether you don't have drivers show up, loads get missed, customers promise
Yes.
they're going to use you and they don't. It's easy to get depressed in this business a little bit.
I
And
agree.
so, but when you wake up and you realize that you are healthy, are able to just wake up, you can exercise, there's so many things to be grateful for that sometimes we miss out on that happiness because we're looking at the load that was dropped or the customer that was upset. And those things are important. Man, you still have, breath in your lungs. You still have reasons to be grateful. So I think starting your day off with gratefulness is a big key to getting your mind right before the day.
Yes, I agree. That was so good. So, what about LinkedIn, Tim? You are top 1% of supply chain connections on LinkedIn. How did you grow your network so
So
authentically,
I
and
had a little
how
bit
has
of
it helped?
Yeah,
Mm,
well, so being a headhunter, it did help because I didn't have recruiting tools. I didn't use Career Builder or Monster. I didn't use Indeed. LinkedIn generated 100% of my revenue for 10 years.
wow.
It still generates 98% of my revenue. And so, knowing I needed to connect with decision makers, I just started, putting basic searches in, introducing myself, and just seeing how I can help them. And so,
Mm,
a lot of times people build these big brands of tens of thousands of followers, but they're not decision makers. So they're really popular and they get a lot of likes, but they're not really growing their revenue because the people following them aren't really decision makers. And so I decided when I was 24 years old to start connecting with senior managers, directors, CEOs, vice presidents, and really building relationships with key decision makers. And so, once people started to realize that I was connected to those decision makers, more people wanted to connect with me. And
yeah.
so I quickly went from, a couple thousand followers to over 40,000. And they're all within supply chain. They're all decision makers. I don't connect with anybody else outside of the industry. That way
Yes.
I can stay really focused on how to grow our businesses.
Yes. So, what do you think the most people misunderstand about building real business relationships?
Yeah, I think that a lot of it they hope to transact and see a win-win really fast. So I think because transportation is so fast moving, you think that every connection is going to be a transaction within a week or a month. And I have, 100 recommendations on LinkedIn, and you can see where I'll introduce and connect with somebody, and it won't be 3 years later until I place them in a vice president role. Or I connected with a fleet and then they finally bought 100 tractors from me 2 years later. And so, but the
Yes.
whole time I'm checking in on them. I'm seeing how their family is. I'm noticing when they get promoted. I see if they change companies and I say congratulations. And so you keep up with that relationship. And sometimes it does take a couple years. And I
I
think in this
agree.
industry, people want now, 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 now.
Yes.
And to me, it's like getting married. You're not going to get married on a first date. You're not going to get married on a fifth date. Sometimes it takes years to build a real relationship. And so you just have to put in the time.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I always, also like congratulate or say happy birthday. I always stay connected with my notifications. That's amazing. So, what was a moment when you realized, wait, LinkedIn is actually a gold mine, and if you use it right?
Yeah, so I would say when I opened Sourcify, that was probably a big moment. Actually, there was a company that I opened in 2020 called Fresh Hands with a partner of mine in Houston, Texas. And we started selling hand sanitizer and gloves and masks and thermometers. And I realized that I built such a strong network of trust that when nobody could find hand sanitizer, when nobody could find gloves and masks because everything went to schools and hospitals and those needed businesses, I started to realize that, wow, I can't just only get people jobs. People trust me to find all sorts of things. And so I took that mindset of, hey, I've now got some trust behind a lot of these decision makers. And it allowed me now to realize I can have conversations of what do you need within your supply chain? Do you need trucks? Do you need carriers? Do you need brokerages? Are you looking for investment opportunities? And
Yeah.
I started building partnerships that are really good at those things. And
Wow.
from that point on, like I said, 98% of all of my revenue for 14 years now has come from LinkedIn and relationships that were started in LinkedIn.
Yes, that is amazing. So, how do men maintain connection with so many people? at scale without losing the personal touch and losing the track, because so many,
I
people
will,
involved.
yeah, that is by far the hardest thing to do. I'm not going to lie. Some people ask me, why don't I just hire an admin to run my LinkedIn? Because a lot of people, especially executives, they do have a executive admin that runs their management of their conversations. I don't do that. But because I don't do that, I do miss, messages. I'll take a 1 week vacation and I'll come back with 114 messages and I just
Yeah,
can't get to all 114. And so it
yeah,
is it is difficult, but I can say that I'm real and that it really is me messaging. There's no bot, there's no admin, there's no one pretending to be me. But
yes.
it really is difficult, other than I do live on LinkedIn every day, 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. I'm constantly on LinkedIn connecting and building relationships.
Yes, that is amazing. So let's talk about the real estate part. What inspired, to pivot from supply chain to real estate investing? Was there a single moment that made you say, like, I'm going all in?
Yeah, it's a funny story. So, I've always talked to executives and they get these really lucrative bonuses at the end of the year. So every February, March, April, people get bonuses for the last year and they already have their
Uh,
401k, they already have their IRA. And so some people make a 30,000 and some make a $1 million bonus and they're not sure what to do. They already have their truck, they already have their pool, maybe they don't have any kids at home anymore. And so they're trying to see where to put their money. And
uh-huh.
so I knew that was an issue with a lot of my network. And so I took the risk. I pulled a home equity line of credit on my house. I took my own risk. And me and a partner, we built a home in cash. And we built a home for $220,000 and we sold it for $350,000. And I said,
Wow.
wow, okay. And I said, let me do that 3 more times. And so I did it 3 more times and it went great. And I said, well, I can't keep doing this with my own money or I'm going to run out of money. And
Yes.
so I started capital raising with people on LinkedIn that I know through supply chain. And I was overwhelmed with the amount of trust and the amount of money they were trusting me with. And it's been great. We've built 30 or 40 houses already. We have 2 subdivisions going up near 100 houses in Alabama. And it's just putting those partners. I have the builder relationships, the engineering relationships, the capital relationships, and with that, I'm able to, help investors maximize their profits. And we're building houses for middle class America. These houses are all between $250,000 and $350,000 because inflation
Yes.
was so real. It's hard to find
Uh-huh.
houses at that price point anymore. And so
Yes.
we saw the need and I just used the same relationships that I've had.
That's amazing. So you're solving real world problems, right? With real solutions. So what
Yep.
about, your trailers, chassis, truck parking, and
Yep.
all these, stuff that you are doing? Again, the same concept?
It's I'm telling you, it's all partnerships. I have my top, trailer and chassis reefer. I have different relationships in every part. So I have my top 2 or 3 trailer suppliers, my top 2 or 3 reefer suppliers, my top 2 or 3 chassis suppliers. And
Mhm.
so they treat me very well and they're very good with their pricing. And it's actually been funny because there's really large Fortune 500 companies that are always wondering how I have relationships that are cheaper in pricing than they get, and they're a Fortune 500 company. And
Yes.
I said, well, when you have real relationships with CEOs and COOs and you do their resumes for free and you give their kids free consulting, you'd be surprised the kind of pricing and the type of effort you get in these partnerships. And so it really is just building real partnerships that everybody gets a win-win.
Yes, that is amazing. This book that it says like give, 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 ask, right? So you get this relationship by giving value, by helping,
It
and
is.
it just comes back to you. So that's
Well,
amazing.
especially, I tell people a lot, like I probably walked away from near $2 million in the last year because the margins were so small that there wasn't a way for me to win. So someone has a budget of this, I can't get it for that much and me still be able to get compensated. I'm not going
Mhm.
to ruin that transaction because I can't get paid. And so
Yes.
I bridge the gap anyways and I say, hey, you guys keep me in mind And these guys come back thrilled, excited, humbled, and they call me on their next deal. They leave a testimonial. They jump on a podcast with me. And so there's times I've lost tons of money, and it's like, you know what? I don't care. I know that if I can give back to my network and give back to these partners, that I'm going to get it back tenfold. And so people always wonder why I don't get more irritated and angry when I get cut out of a deal. And I just think that God blesses those who can sit there and make sure other people are taken care of. And so that's just been my motto for a while, and it's been working.
Yes, it has been working, I'm sure. God never leaves us, and everything comes back to us. That's so true. So,
Sure.
what about these real estate returns? Because it has
Yep.
been mentioned that it is like between 17 to 35 returns, which is like amazing.
Yep.
So, what is your long-term vision for these projects, and how do you choose which
Sure.
one to raise for?
Yeah, so our goal in doing this was, what is the best return on investment that an index fund or a 401k can give you? And most
Mhm.
people see 9 to 11%. And so we realized for investors to be excited, they need to see something a good bit more than 9 to 11.
Yes.
So, with the margin that we get in building and selling houses and real estate, it allowed us to say, hey, you know what? We can double that and give you 17 to 30%, depending on how much capital you invest. And because if you think about it, your dollar invested, it's only going up 3, 4, 5%, but inflation is going up sometimes higher than that. So people don't
Yeah.
realize that some years your 401k actually cost you money because the value of the dollar went down and inflation
Yeah.
went up. And so I think that's where our opportunity in real estate was able to really make a lot of investors happy. And so we're excited to continue capital raising and help people grow their own wealth for their families for whatever they're looking to do in the future.
Yeah, that is amazing. Tim, so I really love that goldfish mindset that you shared. Can you talk more about how you reset quickly after a setback and how other leaders can build the same resilience?
Yep, sure. So similar to what we discussed further, it's really having that grateful mindset. Um, you're going to have bad news. You're going to, and when I say bad news, I wish it was only that you lost a load in a brokerage or your driver called in, you lost a customer. That is bad news. But if we're talking about in life, sometimes you get a call and cancer hits. I lost my younger brother 10 years ago. I lost my mother 5 years ago. And sometimes bad news just happens and there's nothing you can do about it. And you wake up with two choices. You can be the victim and say, why me? And look for addictions and look for, alcohol and drugs or infidelity or different things you can look for. Or you can say, hey, in spite of those things that are negative, I still have the following great things in my life, and I'm going to use those things for the better. And so I think being able to quickly move on from things you can't control and only focus on the things you can control, that's not just going to make you better in business. It's going to make you a better father, husband, mother, wife, all of those things, because real
Yeah.
life sucks sometimes. And you're just going to have to roll with it and figure out where can I find joy, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. And you don't want to look up one day and look back and say, man, I've been a really miserable, depressed person because of what's happened to me. I'd rather say, in spite of those things, I still made it. And because I made it, my family's going to make it. And those are kind of motivational things I have to tell myself every morning because some days are hard.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I'm so sorry about your loss. But as you say, every morning we decide either we are victim or we are victor, right?
That's it.
So let's just be victors. So we talked about faith, but faith seems to guide your work deeply. And I love that part. How has your faith influenced the way you do business and lead others? If you want to
Yeah.
add something else.
So it was. It's been a while. I was raised in a faith household. Went to a Christian school. I'm actually part of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, where I help athletes in middle school and high school, increase their lifestyle and understand that there's a bigger picture than just what we see every day. And I started to realize that in partnerships in relationships in business, sometimes you get let down. Sometimes who you thought was loyal was not loyal. And sometimes people that were put in your life that you thought were just for a season were there forever. And the ones that are there forever, you thought are just there for a season. And so I started changing my mindset to really just praying about God, close the doors that I don't need to walk through and open the doors I need to walk through and help me know which one is which. And so because I start my day off that way, I try to make it very clear, hey, I'm not going to force myself into a door that's shut. Even though the dollars behind it look really, really good, if it ever comes into questioning my morals, my values, I no longer just give in to that just because of a dollar sign. And there was a time that I did chase the dollar. You know, I have four children, three of them I've adopted, and adopting kids is extremely expensive. And sometimes those fights and going through court battles made me have to look at money and really get money hungry for a reason that I thought was justified. But unfortunately, I made some poor decisions on who I trusted. And so it caused me to wake up and realize that, hey, the money can be there and God can do things, even though it doesn't make sense on paper. And so that really changed my mindset.
Wow, that was amazing. I actually had that dream to also adopt kids, but now I have my two, and it kind of got a little bit behind because I'm a single mom, so I don't know if I can, have another more kid to take care,
Sure.
but
No, I
maybe you never
understand that.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they definitely was not, it wasn't planned. It's just God had plans, and
yeah.
when those things happen, sometimes you just have to roll with it.
I agree because I remember my dad, he was a police officer. He's now retired, but he also adopted like for a few years two kids that their mom got into jail and they didn't have anyone to take care and my dad brought these kids and my mom was taking care of them and it was amazing experience. But
Yep,
yeah, as you say, sometimes God, puts you in situations that you have to step up and do the right things, right?
that's it.
Yes. Well, so you have done so much, but what is the next step? Can you please share if you want a little bit?
Oh man. I'm still trying to figure out that next step. I have a lot of dreams and aspirations of building things. I've always loved being an entrepreneur and opening businesses and trying to find other people's passions. You know, we do want to get into, bigger real estate and look at apartment buildings and hotel buildings. But one of the things that I really want to launch here soon, and I'm surprised I'm going to disclose this with you because I haven't really talked about it. Um, but Mark Manera, who most people know on LinkedIn, he does the squat challenge with all the trucks, and
Yes.
he's a doctor, and he really
He has
cares
been
about
in my
the.
shows actually one
He's
time. Yes.
yeah, he's awesome, and I met him a few years ago, and I loved his passion for drivers. And when I started to realize the health of drivers and the obesity and the heart problems that they have just because of their job, and yet truck drivers are so important to us in our supply chain. You know, they have to drive when it's wet, they got to drive when it's icy, they got to drive in the hurricane, and yet they're the ones doing it knowing that their life expectancy is 12 years less than all of ours.
Yes.
And so I've wanted to start creating a meal plan to where we are having our meals that are healthy, that Mark's helping me making sure the nutritional contents are there. These are going to be microwavable meals that have the right proteins, carbs, and fats that are literally for drivers in the industrial workforce, and be more cost effective because it stinks that a grilled chicken sandwich is $10 at Chick-fil-A, to where I can get a burger for $2, or the Power Bar is $6, but the Snicker bar is $1. And so I see a need of better health in our country, especially for our drivers. And so I'm currently looking at ways to help solve that problem and really get our truck drivers and our warehouse employees just better ways to eat, and better ways to stay healthy because they have a family too that's looking for them to live a long life. And so
Yes.
that's one thing I definitely want to start looking at from a new business perspective.
Wow, that is amazing. I definitely support you. I have been a driver. I'm not sure if you know or not, but it
What?
has, I just drove 1 year, but it affected me so much. I gained weight. My legs were swollen. There was not a lot of like food choices. I had to cook in the truck, but it smells, it stinks, so it was tough. I knew all the like great restaurants in especially Chicago area where you can park with your car. There was a sushi buffet that was my favorite, so but it was struggle, to
It
eat.
is. I mean, that's awesome that you even did it a year. I rode with one of my drivers when I was at Spartan a year ago or 2 years ago now, and it was my first time ever, riding in a truck one of our routes, and it's a one way, 6 hours and back, and just one stop, and they didn't tell me don't. I try to drink a gallon of water a day, and they said, Tim, that's not smart because I'm not stopping to go to the bathroom, and so it definitely was learning that you can't eat and drink the same way you normally do when you're at home. And so kudos to you for making it a year because I don't think I could have done that.
Well, can I share you a secret about that drinking water part? I had actually like I built it myself a restroom in the truck, but just for drinking water part, because
Oh
as
man.
you say, it is so hard to park and you lose so much time, and you will be late, with unloading and loading. So I definitely know the challenge, and
Yeah.
yeah. That's great that you are supporting the care, truck drivers. That's amazing. I love that idea. And if I can help you in any way, let me know. And thank
Absolutely.
you so much, team. Even though we had some difficulties in the beginning, but our show was amazing. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your story. And if you want to check out Tim's, you can find him in LinkedIn, right, Tim?
That's it.
And yes, and for those of you who tuned in this episode, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. I'm gonna post it in YouTube and in LinkedIn maybe. And also, I wanted to share that I have this LinkedIn branding course for people designed and especially in logistics because I love LinkedIn and I know how transformational it can be. So if someone is interested, please let me know. And thank you again for joining and for listening. And I will see you next time.
All right. Thank you for having me on.